What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have Invest 93L, Invest 92L that currently is just inland and is currently dissipating. And we have other areas of interest potentially in the Caribbean Sea and in the Lesser Antilles, according to some of the ensemble models I've been taking a look at. So let's go ahead and dive right into it right here and right now. Let's go ahead and start with the NHC's outlook for this right here. Here's what we have for Invest 92L, even though this should have been a tropical depression. I already made a rant about this. I'm not going to rehash this. But here's what we have going on. Showers and thunderstorms associated with the low pressure system just inland over South Georgia has decreased during the past several hours. It's expected to drift slowly to the north-northeast near the coast of Georgia and South Carolina before dissipating by Sunday. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected. 0% chance of formation. Okay, that's what we're looking at. This area of interest is kind of interesting right there. The problem I'm noticing with this is that it's kind of close to shore. It's too close to shore for this thing to really organize or develop or anything like that. Although a Hurricane Hunter aircraft is on the way to figure out what the hell is going on. So that's what's going on right here. Broad area of low pressure located over southwestern Gulf of Mexico is producing a large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions appear to have been a little more marginal for development of the system as it moves slowly northward, but a tropical depression could still form before the system reaches the coast Sunday night. Regardless, heavy rainfall is still expected, and that's my main concern with this right there, because Alberto caused a lot of rainfall, especially in the mountainous regions, and since that's about to happen again, it's something I am very concerned, to say the very least, with repeat flash flooding and all that stuff right here. So let's go ahead and first look at the Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance right there. They're currently going in right now. They're definitely finding something, that's for sure. They definitely found found the center of circulation. That's which is pretty interesting right there. They have they don't really have any drops. They have one drop, but I'm not going to take a look at that right now. I just think it's kind of interesting that they're currently investigating this, and I do think they're going to find some stuff. We just don't know 100% sure what exactly they're going to find in there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at the current storms. This is Invest 93L. We're not going to look at Invest 92L because it's not going to develop anyway. Maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour or 30 knots. Its current location is 21.0 degrees north, 95.7 degrees west. Minimum central pressure is 1,005 millibars, and the radius of maximum winds is 140 nautical miles. So that's definitely something to pay attention to right there. We still have a little bit of time before it gets over land. So overall, we're going to have to take a very close look at that going forward. So here's what we have going on with the conditions that we are looking at, not just for this or 92L, but also in the Caribbean and in the main development region, because essentially what I'm looking at is there's been an uptick of ensemble models that have been forecasting for a tropical cyclone to organize and develop in the next week or so. So let's go ahead and move on to the global sea temperatures to kind of get a gaze as to what we're potentially going to be taking a look at. Here's what we have going on right now. Across a lot of these regions right here, we are looking at pretty much 28 plus degrees Celsius across the board, across much of the Gulf, across much of the Caribbean. There is a lot of 30 plus degrees Celsius or 86 plus degree Fahrenheit waters in the Caribbean, and about 28 plus degrees across much of the main development region. And I'm also noticing that this 28 plus degree water is pushing further and further to the north as the water continues to warm more and more as we get more data coming in. So that's what we're looking at right now. The global sea temperatures overall is still extremely warm. This in 2023 have been the top two warmest waters on record right here. Here's the climate reanalyzer analysis right here. Right now, the 2023 sea surface temperatures have kind of overtaken them currently, but not by very much, by like 1 to 2.1 to 0.2 degrees Celsius right there. I fully expect this thing to continue surging. It kind of went through a little bit of a slump right there, and then it started warming. That's typical. That's kind of how this stuff oscillates. So just something to pay attention to right there. It's going to be competing with 2023 waters, which I think is very concerning to say the very least, because what that's going to do is it's going to allow for a lot more fuel, and it's going to allow for a lot more ocean heat content to really get in there. And speaking of which, we're already seeing historic levels of ocean heat content across the Caribbean, across the main development region, across the Gulf of Mexico, And that's expected to continue to rise for the next 2 months or so. So that's what we have. This is what we have going on. We have 150 to 175 OHC across much of the Caribbean Sea over here. And this is stuff I am taking very seriously. Not because I think there's going to be something that big that develops this month. I mean, there might be a probability of something happening in the Caribbean in the MDR. But I'm thinking 2 months down the road because, okay, let's think about this logically right here. What's going to happen if there's going to be no tropical cyclones and this just stays untouched? Well, it's going to keep building up and building up and building up, kind of like what it did last year. And my main concern was the Caribbean Sea, and that's why I had it as the greatest threat for this hurricane season, because what we were seeing was a transition from El Nino to a weak La Nina, or at least, which kind of strengthens the Azores and Bermuda High and allows you to push further into the south, into the Caribbean Sea, into all that fuel over there with the OHC, as well as the extremely warm waters. So that was my main concern with that. That was the main risk. Also, the shear was going to be less than expected across a lot of these regions, everything like that, due to the weakening of the trade winds. And speaking of wind shear, let's go ahead and pull that map up right here. What we're seeing in the Gulf of Mexico, where 93L is right now, it's in an area of good conditions and everything like that. The problem is it's just too close to land, and I don't think it's going to really get as strong as maybe some models were forecasting this to get, like a tropical storm. This might not even develop, to be honest. Hurricane hunters are out there right now to kind of investigate the system. Still going to have to pay attention to it right now, and we'll keep a very close eye on this. Regardless, heavy rainfall still is the main threat right now. But across the Caribbean and across the main development region, very high wind shear and everything like that. Overall, not too favorable as of right now, but that could change in the next few days or so as we start to see a bit of a pattern shift across much of the region. But before we get into that, I want to take a look at the track models and the intensity models for Invest 93L, just so that way we can get an understanding of what we're potentially looking at. Track models have this thing making landfall in about 24 hours or so. So overall, yeah, I'm not too worried about this thing organizing and developing. I'm mainly concerned about the rainfall across much of Mexico and parts of southern Texas as well, because you never know. And also, they got a lot of rain from Alberto, and that could cause even worse flash flooding in some areas because the soil is already saturated over there, and you're going to see potentially a lot of mudslides over there because of how mountainous much of Mexico is. But overall, when it comes to development, yeah, it's just too close to land right now, so I wouldn't really have that much of a chance of this thing organizing or developing at this current point in time. Intensity models that we can pull you up right there, yeah, they're saying the same thing. Although, interestingly, I'm noticing that once this thing crosses out of the into the Eastern Pacific, there could be some probability of organization and development. Let's take a look at the tracks right there. It definitely does get into there, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% sure about that. I'll keep an eye on it for sure, but I'm not 100% sure because there's a bunch of cooler water, there's a bunch of wind shear over there. Just the conditions don't seem that favorable right now. But with that being said, let's go ahead and show you the shear and the wind forecast. Well, not the wind forecast, that is the shear forecast, but the moisture forecast for the Caribbean Sea, as well as the main development region over the next few days or so. So let's go ahead and look at the 200 to 850 millibar wind shear. Finally, I said that correctly. Go ahead and applaud me in the comments. I keep saying 250 to 800. It should be 200 to 850. Anyway, that's besides the point. Here's what we have, what we're going on right there. There is a bit of a pattern shift, especially in the eastern half of the main development region over here. In the next 48 hours, we see a lot of this wind shear clearing out, and we started to see a bit of a concentrated area of wind shear over here, and we started to see the wind shear weaken quite a bit across much of the Caribbean Sea as well, which that might play into some potential development if the moisture can hold and everything like that over there. So here's what we're going on. Let's go ahead and go out to 96 hours out. That's 4 days out. There is a bit of a narrower corridor of low wind shear and everything like that, so we'll have to pay attention to it. But overall, the Caribbean's wind shear has weakened for the most part. But I do expect this to, especially in the western half of the Atlantic, to fluctuate. As you can see, we see high periods of shear, low periods of shear. I expect it to continue to go up and down, up and down, up and down as this thing continues to organize and develop. We'll still have to pay attention to all of that right then and right there. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. What we're gonna go ahead and go out about a week out right now, and we'll show you why in just a second. But yeah, across the main development region, you do have a little bit of strong wind shear over here with that ridge. But overall, in the southern parts of the MDR, you're gonna have low wind shear, and decently low wind shear too across the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea, which could open the door for some tropical development. And we'll go ahead and show you the moisture forecast to kind of cross-check all of this. Moisture forecast, let's go 48 hours out. There is going to be quite a bit of dry air that's going to intrude across much of the main development region, mainly through the Sahara dust right there. Not nearly as much as last year, but still going to be problematic for tropical development, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. 96 hours out now. The Caribbean starts to moisten up quite a bit, but the Sahara dust continues to increase across much of the Atlantic Ocean and main development region. So still we'll have to pay attention to that. 6 days out right here, we start to see that dry air and kind of intrude across much of the Eastern Caribbean Sea, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. But the Western Caribbean, which is where I'm paying attention to, you see a moisture atmosphere and all that, so we'll keep an eye on that as we start to look at the ensembles in just a second. Main development region, there are some areas of moist air, but overall we do have quite a bit of dry air for it to kind of battle and everything like that, and this is what we are dealing with about 9 days out right here. That dry air moves into the Western Caribbean, and you're going to just see a lot of Sahara dust for the next little while or so. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on it. Overall, I'd say for the month of July, you'd have to pay more attention to the Gulf and the Caribbean regions, and not so much the main development region until that Sahara dust recedes, which that usually starts happening around I'd say the second, third week of July, and then eventually in August, there's going to be a pretty strong low pressure system that's going to push that thing to start moving up into Europe instead of the main development region, and that's when you start seeing things start to fire off across much of the tropics right there. So that's what we're looking at with the moisture and the shear. Let's go ahead and start showing you some models, at least some ensemble models from Weather Nerds over here. Let's go ahead and move this a little bit over to the left right here, so that way we can show you what I'm talking about. So this is what we have right here for Weather Nerds right here. These are the ensembles. We'll start with, we have the European ones right here. Let's go ahead and start with 168 hours out. That's a week out, just to kind of show you what we're potentially looking at right here. Let's go ahead and update this. Yeah, what I'm noticing with a lot of this is we're noticing maybe some tropical depression or tropical storm organization or development across some of these regions over here in the Caribbean Sea. There is quite a few ensemble runs picking up on that right there. I'm paying close attention to that right now. It's something you can keep a very close eye on, and I'm noticing a few more ensemble models from yesterday showing up in parts of the main development region. So overall, things are going to get pretty interesting, I will say. If we go ahead and, matter of fact, go out to the whole 240 hours out, we can update that for the European. Interestingly, the Europeans, a lot of these ensembles really start ramping up in the main development region, where we start to see a bit of a strengthening as it approaches the Lesser Antilles over here. And this is valid using the 0Z model, I believe. So, yeah, this is pretty interesting to say the very least. If you're in the Lesser Antilles, you need to pay attention to this. NHC is probably not going to tag anything for a little while, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. But I am a little more concerned with another area of interest with the Bay of Campeche over here, because that Caribbean system moves into there, and we're seeing a lot of pressures maybe into like the 990s. Or even less than that in a couple of these ensembles there. So we'll have to pay attention to that right there. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS ensembles right there for a similar time frame. GFS wants a lot more of an active area in the main development region, although they also want it a lot further to the south. So definitely something to keep a very close eye on. European wants it a bit further to the north, mainly because of the Azores high over here is going to be a little bit weaker. GFS is calling for a stronger Azores high that's going to push it further to the south. So overall, something to monitor for sure. We'll have to pay attention to it right here and right there. I'm going to keep a very close eye on it. That's for sure, and everything like that. So that's what we're looking at with the ensemble runs right there for the main development region and the Caribbean Sea. And we'll quickly wrap this up with the forecast models, because I don't think any of the operational models show this just yet, And once the operational models do, I'll keep you updated on that. But here's what we're seeing with the European. Yeah, not very much activity happening. We do have some tropical waves organizing and developing in the main development region and the ITCZ, but that's about it. And then you have the GFS right here. Let's go ahead and show you that. GFS has 93L making landfall, not really developing that much. Interestingly, has a bit of that Caribbean track starting to organize and develop. Potentially organize and strengthens into a tropical storm, but keep in mind this is 9 days out, and this is something I would take with a grain of salt right there, although a lot of the ensembles are starting to show that quite a bit, and that's what we have with the GFS. We can go ahead and show you the CMC, because yesterday they were showing on the operational forecast a tropical system making landfall in parts of the Lesser Antilles over there. And then, as you can see right there, they do definitely have a bit of a low-pressure system moving through for parts of the main, not the main development region, but the Lesser Antilles right there. We're not sure if that's going to be a tropical cyclone or just an open wave, so we'll keep an eye on it for you, but I do have a feeling that this is going to be one of your classic June main development region setups right there. NavGem is also kind of having this thing organizing and developing potentially right there. Doesn't really have much showing right there, but that doesn't go far enough out. Icon right here, which is pretty iconic for a bit of a northward bias. Things are pretty interesting in the Gulf and the Caribbean, but then overall we're not seeing that much outside of those regions. So that's what we're kind of looking at as of right now. That's something we're paying attention to more and more as we continue to get more information right there. So what I would say for those of you tuning in from the Lesser Antilles and the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf Coast and everything is this. Keep an eye on your local forecasts, and I'll keep you updated on what the models are saying. And I would also continue to stay updated and everything like that. I'll definitely keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel, and we will continue to give you updates as they come. Before I go, I do have a couple of things I would like to say. Number one, I have a new poll on my community tab asking about if I should do a weekly live stream talking about tropics. Please be sure you go vote on that right afterward. I will leave a link to that in the description down below. Also, we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by my birthday, which is July 17th, my 21st birthday. I've been working on this channel for the last 3 years, and I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we can achieve that goal in the next 25 days. It helps us out, helps us get more videos out like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.